This is going to be a review of the original Twisted Metal on the Sony PlayStation. Now this game, if you want a little bit of kind of background info, was a launch title for the PlayStation back in 1995. So this was kind of the game to show off the power of the PlayStation, its more 3D capabilities, and what Sony was capable of back then, because they were the new guys at this point in time. Um, One thing to note, this was, because it was a launch title, they kind of did a lot of things to somewhat show it off. There were some things that were kind of taken out of the game that would have shown off the power. One of those being FMV cutscenes, which were replaced with text cutscenes. I know sounds a little bit lame, but some features to say this does have CD quality music and digitized graphics along with digitized explosions, which were trying to be photorealistic. Some cool lighting effects, and also on this map arena, there's some TVs that you really don't notice, but they actually have live footage from your screen, so it's kind of, once again, kind of showing off the power of the system. Another kind of quirky feature I need to kind of mention is transparency in the shadowing, which is really something that a lot of games didn't get back then and wouldn't get for a very long time. Now what this is that when an object casts a shadow, in a lot of video games back in the day, they were pure black. You wouldn't see anything beyond the shadow. But this game has it more transparent, which means that you can see like certain objects through the shadows, all that sort of stuff. So it's a little kind of thing I need to bring up. I don't know why I mentioned it even. But kind of getting into the game, this is a 3D combat car game that is more of an open world style. Now, it wasn't the first of its kind of genre. There was a game called Crash and Burn, which came out in '93 on the 3DO, but of course that was a racing game along with a car combat game. But this was definitely more open world. You're going around these 3D cities, you're hunting down these, your enemies and trying to destroy them. One thing I will say about the game that I like is the level design, even though it's definitely more on the basic side, and it gets a little bit repetitive after a while. I will say I do like the use of the textures, the lighting, and even the background somewhat. I think it's well done for when this game came out. I like how they add pedestrians that shoot at you. I think that's a fun little idea, and kind of adds a little bit of aliveness to the cities. But moving on from that to kind of more the gameplay aspect, it's what you would expect from a car combat game. You shoot, you dodge, you get health. You just take down the bad guys. That's all your whole motive is, to destroy everyone and everything in order to win. Now, believe it or not, this game is actually a lot harder than it looks. I'm playing on medium mode, which is actually kind of more in the hard range for me. And then hard is probably impossible for me to complete. I never really was a good, Twisted Metal player. I've always kind of had to use the more easy modes to win, but, that's me. I know some of you probably can. But the reason why this game is hard is not really because of not just a challenging AI, but more of you can't really do much about anything once you get into a firefight. What happens is, you start shooting at the enemy, they shoot at you obviously, and while they're draining a lot of health, you are too. And not only that, but when there's multiple enemies like in the same area, you will lose a lot more health than your enemies. But not just that either. It's kind of hard to dodge enemy fire, especially when you're trying to go after them too. There's really no way you can't hit the enemies without taking hits yourself, unless you're like some kind of god at the game. I don't know. There's some people out there that can do just ridiculous stuff. But kind of moving along from that, this game is hard, and not just only with the firefarts either, but actually the controls. They're a little bit on. I mean, they're not bad controls. It's just the PlayStation, the handling of the car. This was kind of in the early stages, so things like down on the D-pad is reverse, and up on the D-pad can be used to go, but square is. Triangles to brake, or yeah, I'm actually probably going to confuse the controls, but all I do know for sure is that your top triggers change weapons, and then your bottom triggers either fire a machine gun or your main weapon. There are a bunch of different types of weapons to pick up, from freezing rockets, reverse rockets, bombs, you know, strip mines, oil slicks, homing missiles, all that sorts of fun stuff, and it's great. There's a lot of variety in the weapons, and I like that. Also, you got your turbo too to make you go faster and get out of sticky situations, and then you got your healing kind of tablets. Tablets. I think they're more platforms, should I say. Tablets is kind of a dumb word, but you go on them, and it kind of gives you back a good amount of health, and they are necessary. You're going to usually use either most of them or all of them. They do recharge though, but it will take a while. So if you are low on health and you don't think you're going to beat your enemy, then you're just going to kind of have to wait it out. But another thing is, I will say I do love the explosions in this game. Even though they are, digitized, trying to be photorealistic explosions, I love the over-top Hollywood style that this game kind of brings to the table. Yeah, it's definitely a gritty game. You got all this graffiti, you got these cities that look like they're just in the dumps. This is portraying Los Angeles, of course. But I love the gritty style, along with it kind of laughs at itself. It doesn't really take it too seriously, It kind of adds some comedy to it, and I like that. I like a game that can be serious and also laugh at itself at the same time. It's a good style. And one thing I will say is the nighttime does get repetitive after a while, but luckily they do change it with levels like Suburbia, which is in the day, and then of course you get your final stage, Rooftop, which is kind of this middle, like, sunset style. I love the background on that level. If you ever play that level, just look at the background. I think it's beautiful. But kind of getting into the whole, object of the game. Obviously, there's 12 characters to choose from. They each have different attributes, different handling, different weapon styles. I forgot to mention earlier, each person has a special weapon that they can use, from flamethrowers to kind of ghost missiles that track the enemy no matter what. Also, like, you got napalm cones, which is Sweet Tooth special. And every character has a different special that they can use to their advantage. And that kind of adds variety to the game. When you play the game through as a different character each time, you will see differences, and there'll be also differences in your play style and what you do to win. And I think that's kind of fun. Even though this game really doesn't have the best replay value, since there's not really a lot to it. Once again, there's only 6 levels. There is a 2-player mode, which is just, you versus a friend. Choose arena, choose a car. That's really about it for that. But, other than that, it's just kind of a small little game that was showing off the PlayStation. It is fun, and I will kind of come back to it once in a while, because I just like this game. I like the style. I've always been a fan of the Twisted Metal series, especially 2 and Twisted Metal Black, even Head On. But yeah, this game is kind of a nice little fun thing that you play once in a while. It's nothing that you'll constantly go about trying to beat. It's not like Bloodborne or like some massive multiplayer game like World of Warcraft. It's nothing like that where you take all this time to defeat it. It's something that you can defeat in probably less than an hour. And even though there really isn't that, like I said, they got rid of the FMV cutscenes to this game, so all you get was text. It's still a little bit fun to kind of see what happens. It kind of gets rid of that wonder. And, it's fine. It was a launch game, so there's not really much you can complain about there. Now, more as a whole, I think this game was good. It did spawn a great genre. Even though later titles, which were not made by the same developers that made the original, they were bad. I'm talking about Twisted Metal 3 and 4. What happened was Single Track made the original Twisted Metal that you're seeing here, along with 2, but then there was kind of an argument, and they kind of left, and then they gave the series to 989 Studios, which made 3 and 4, which just, they weren't really bad games in themselves, but they just weren't Twisted Metal. So then, of course, later on, Single Track came back under a different name, made Twisted Metal Black and Small Brawl. Also, they made Twisted Metal Head On, and I don't know about the PlayStation 3 version, but yeah, it did spawn a great series, and one that got progressively better as it went on. Yeah, even though Twisted Metal 3 and 4 weren't that good, I will say they did add some pretty good features to the game. But kind of along that note, this is where it all began. And even though it is a little quirky game, there are some problems with the controls. It's still a good game. I still like it. It's one that I recommend you buy, even though it is small. It's cheap. You can probably get it for around $3, if that. This is if you're going for the more later versions. If you're going for the launch version that came in the black cardboard case, that might be a little bit more money. But if you're just gonna get this game in its like greatest hit form, then it's gonna be cheap, and it's well worth it. It's well worth putting in your Sony PlayStation collection to kind of show you how the PlayStation began. And that's kind of my thought on this game. Hope you enjoyed this review, and if you have any questions, just ask me in the comment section. Have a good day.